Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about some thoughts I've had here regarding the NFL playoffs, and I've discussed this with some of you in social media as well as in some of my recent lectures. So let's just kind of start here looking at this. If you haven't been following the sport for the last couple of years here, you'll probably know that it's the format's a little bit different because we now have 7 teams from each conference, as well as the team that's the number 2 seed has effectively lost their bye just to kind of make the brackets and the math work here. But I think that's going to be a subject of discussion among many other things among fans and pundits and meetings between the ownership and the Players Association this coming off season. Now, if you look at the particulars of the games here, if we start over on the AFC, we have Jacksonville, which I think is a little bit of a surprise to people. But Trevor Lawrence has really come out in a big way. He's lived up to kind of, the reputation he had at high school in Georgia and his career at Clemson, and in those championships, challenging some of the uh, dynastical SEC teams. And then we look at the matchup against the Chargers, who I think have had easily a top 5, a 53-man roster here in the last 5 seasons or so. That's a very talented team with another great quarterback there, Justin Herbert, a very good talent on the perimeter. And that's going to be an interesting matchup. Both these teams relatively don't have a lot of playoff experience. I think that the Jaguars have a shot to pull this off because it's a home game, and things just kind of happen differently in the playoffs, especially when you're at home. Cincinnati, Baltimore. This had the chance to be a truly epic matchup had Lamar Jackson decided to play, but it does not appear that's going to be the case. So I think that this will be. I don't want to say an easy win for Cincinnati because the Ravens are, I think, one of the best organizations in not just professional football but in professional sports in general. But I just think that with the loss of Lamar, there's certain things they can't do on offense, and they've kind of had an inconsistent season, which is why they're the 6th seed. I will take the Bengals somewhat cautiously because they are coming in on a big win streak. The next brackets we have here are Buffalo and Miami. I think Buffalo is going to win this game. Miami, they're kind of they've been in free fall a little bit, and I think that the Buffalo Bills, with it being at home, they're going to be energized and they're going to be, I think, very motivated to play. So I'll go ahead and take Buffalo in that game. I still think Tyreek could have a good game, but I think the Bills are gonna come out on top there. All right. So if we head over to the NFC, now this is deemed essentially the weaker conference this year. I've made that argument on several occasions. But let's take a look here at some of the teams. Tampa Bay and Dallas. This arguably is probably the toughest matchup for Tampa Bay, other than if they had played San Francisco. This is, I think, a little bit hard game to call because Dallas looks so great on offense at times, but they're going to be outside on grass, and Tom Brady did not play an entire quarter plus change last week. The week before, though, they did a nice job against Carolina in what really was a must-win game for them to get into the playoffs, of mixing things up. They threw in some of their 2-minute drill, and they were able to move the ball. There were flashes that this team looked like they did a couple of years ago when they won it all. So I think that when you consider all the things with this game and the lack of trust that exists right now with the Cowboys organization in big spots, they've had a couple of playoff wins since they won their last Super Bowl in the mid '90s, but it's been there's been a lot of of drama and a lot of things going on late in games that you don't want to have happen with this team. fairly consistently in the last quarter century in the playoffs. So I think that this is a game that Tampa Bay can win. If you look at the matchups, though, obviously the issue with Tampa Bay this year as an 8-9 team making the playoffs as the 4 seed is that their offensive line has been banged up. And I talked about how this was probably going to be a rough go the minute Ryan Jensen got hurt in training camp, and it's kind of gone downhill for the Bucs ever since. I cannot stress enough how this team's problems are pretty much solely revolving around the fact that they can't run the football. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Sometimes the analysts and the commentators will talk about that. Sometimes they won't. Tom Brady's never really been a big beneficiary of getting the kind of excuses that, an Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes has over the the last several seasons. But that's kind of the reality of the situation for the Bucs. Dallas, though, they're bottom 2 in terms of run defense. So I think the Bucs, considering it's at home, considering what Tom Brady's been able to do late in games, I would take the Bucs straight up to win this game. The Giants and the Vikings. Again, this is another tough one to call. These 2 teams played not that long ago. It was a close Minnesota victory. A lot of people like the Giants here, but I think they're missing something here, and that is the fact that that Minnesota, if they get enough of this negative press, and they have a home playoff game, they can really feed off of that, and it gives them, I think, an extra motivation and an extra step on the field. So I really think that the Vikings can win this game. Now, I don't have confidence that Kirk Cousins can go out and win 4 straight playoff games against teams that are progressively either better or teams that are really, really hot. But I still expect that they'll be able to win a home playoff game against an inexperienced Giants team and kind of a little bit of a jittery team under QB Daniel Jones there. I also think that the Vikings have got, they've got great talent with Justin Jefferson. And Adam Thielen, the hometown boy. I think this is a game that he can step up and shine in a little bit too. Now the final matchup here, which will be featured this afternoon, that's going to be San Francisco and Seattle. And I happen to like I think this game's going to be a lot closer than what people think it is. I think the weather is going to be a factor here. I don't believe that Kyle Shanahan is really kind of the ultra conservative coach people think he is. I think back to the Super Bowl that they were in a couple of years ago against Kansas City, and they were in a situation where they had the lead, and instead of just kind of getting clammy and trying to run the ball, risking going 3 and out, and not giving the defense rest and giving the ball back to KC. They actually, tried to move the ball down the field and get some more points. So that aspect about their coaching, I like. But I think the weather is going to be a factor in this game. San Francisco, the other issue I have with them is that they've now won 11 straight games. Would you believe this team at one point was 2-4, and they've rattled off 11 straight wins. I have an issue, especially with the team with a rookie quarterback, third string quarterback going in and carrying a team with a long winning streak. And the playoffs are a lot different than the regular season. It's a much different pace of play. There's more pressure in different kinds of situations, and it's easy if you get jittery for things to go wrong. I do think the 49ers are going to win this game because it's at home. But there's a lot of things here where I think Seattle is going to cover the spread because the 49ers haven't lost a game in about 3 months. And, they're playing with a lot of inexperience at quarterback. They're probably the deepest team in the NFL at every other layer you can think of. But the quarterback happens to be the most important position there is. And so and they're also playing Seattle for the third time this year. So this I don't think is going to be a very easy win for San Francisco. I think they're really going to have to grind it out. And if they aren't prepared for that, then I do think Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Pete Carroll's a veteran coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He's won a national championship at the college level. He knows what this is all about. So even though Seattle just kind of got into the playoffs thanks to Detroit, again, don't underestimate the Seahawks in this game. Okay, so let's talk a little bit then too about some of the teams that did not quite make the cut here. I think the most obvious, if you look here, you've got the Packers and the Lions. And if you're talking about the NFC, I've been a critic of Aaron Rodgers for the last really for the last decade, and it has until very recently been pretty lonely on top of that mountain. I know Colin Cowherd of FS1 has to his credit hiked his way up there as well in the last 7 years. But what I saw from a lot of the media coverage last week with the Lions, pulling off the upset in somewhat dramatic fashion, up in Green Bay, I think people are kind of very wary of Aaron Rodgers' antics and his attitude. But as I've been saying for the last couple of years, that the issue is that now I think Jordan Love's better than what he was, like 2 years ago. But the Green Bay Packers would be facing the real possibility, if they didn't have Aaron Rodgers, of anywhere from winning, say, 4 games a year to 0 games a year. And that 0 wins is a real possibility. If you have a quarterback who goes out there who's not prepared and can't play, especially when you look at what Detroit and Chicago were able to do in some of their games this year. Detroit, they started the year 1-6, and they finished 9-8. And I know you're thinking Chicago, they got the number 1 draft pick. They finished, I think it was 3-14. But I can pretty much guarantee you that the teams the Packers beat this season would prepare very differently if they were playing against Jordan Love than if they were playing against Aaron Rodgers, and probably a lot more confidently. If you look at a couple other teams here, like the Commanders, they were pretty much in control of their destiny for a while, but then lost a bunch of games in a row. The Steelers, if we head over to the AFC, they were kind of in it. They managed to help Mike Tomlin avoid his first losing season after a disastrous start. The other team I want to talk about in the AFC, though, was New England, because I've been a Patriots fan. Patriots are one of the 3 teams that I've been a fan of for the last 25 years, going back to the Drew Bledsoe days. And the wheels have really kind of come off the organization there. I think we're seeing kind of the culmination of Camp Belichick having too much power in that organization. I've now heard reports that Mac Jones has gone behind his back to do certain things. And you can really kind of piece together as to why Tom Brady didn't want to be there anymore. I said as far back as 2018, I didn't think Tom was, or 2017, I didn't think Tom was going to finish his career with the Patriots, because that's just not how it works out for great quarterbacks in the modern era. Typically, Montana did not finish as a 49er. Brett Favre, he spent the last 3 seasons of his career with 2 different teams. Kurt Warner went to the Cardinals. I mean, it's, Trent Dilfer won his Super Bowl ring with the Ravens. That's just kind of how it is, and the Patriots, I think they're kind of under a little bit of an illusion here that they can still, compete, with Bill Belichick kind of, like doing this sort of very careful, chess, and mixing in this really kind of old school, 1940s type of NFL, play calling, but that works like in a Super Bowl against against a coach from another conference that he doesn't see that very often. But it's really not a great way to run an NFL franchise in the year 2022. And I know Bill doesn't like putting up with a lot of the drama and the divas. For those of you who've said, well, in the last 12 years here, well, if only Aaron had Bill Belichick, well, do you really think Aaron's diva personality and Bill Belichick's old school regimen of discipline would mesh well together? I don't think that would be a very good fit. And so I think what needs to happen with the Patriots is that again, I think the media is missing the point on this. There's talk of you can go online and see should they fire Belichick? I mean, I think what they need to do is that they need to adjust what they're doing. They need to draft better. They need to develop better players on offense. You need to have offensive guys making offensive calls. That's really how you kind of get back into it. Patriots did win 8 games this year, but none of their wins were all that terribly impressive. All right, well, I hope everyone enjoys the games, and I will post more later.